Hi, everybody. It's me, Constance. I'm here with another podcast episode. I'm really excited to have a guest here. His name is James Bolger. He's here with us today. And just to talk a little bit about the podcast, I started this podcast to push for the petition for children with autism in Philadelphia. James is also from Philadelphia. So he backs that up, I suppose. But yeah, so just a little bit about him. So James is legally blind. He's a legally blind mental health therapist, a husband, a father. He is the father of two children on the autism spectrum. So we're definitely going to have some questions for the parents who have, more than one child who may need some advice. So Jay, along with Alaina, work to provide a safe, sensory-rich environment for their daughters. So I love that. I know when we met, we spoke a little bit, and just everything you were telling me, I'm just really glad to have you on here.
Thank
So
you.
without further ado, we have James here. Hi.
Hello.
Hello. Yes. You want to introduce yourself a little bit?
Yeah. So I like the intro said before. I am a legally blind mental health therapist. I have been working in mental health now for a little over 2 years. I'm a recent graduate of Walden University with my master's in clinical mental health counseling with a specialty in trauma and crisis intervention. Believe it or not, oftentimes when you work in mental health, a lot of what you get, and that's one thing I kind of wanted to share on today, is you get a lot of individuals who are brought in for treatment for autism or for other cognitive conditions, and there's a big stigma and a big concern about uh, children being diagnosed, and that's we'll get into that in a bit, I guess. But more so, I have two daughters, a 7-year-old and a 1-year-old. The 7-year-old was diagnosed with autism when she was 3. The 1-year-old has not been diagnosed yet. You cannot get a formal diagnosis until you're 2, but she's currently going through speech therapy. She's getting OT. She's getting all of the services right
Okay.
now, and it's likely that she may be diagnosed. She may not be the same place in the spectrum that my oldest is,
Hmm.
but she currently is receiving those services because it's possibly likely. One of the things that we discover is that it's scary, but you have a 50% higher risk of having a second child on the spectrum after you've had your first child be diagnosed on the spectrum. Um,
Oh, okay.
so it's a higher likelihood of that happening. So with everything that we knew with our daughter, our oldest daughter, and
Yeah.
everything we went through, it was like, okay, well, let's get this started sooner rather than later, because the sooner you can get them into services and working with someone, the sooner you can actually get them progressing along and not having to go through a lot of the pitfalls you go through the very first time you kind of go through it all.
Yeah. So that's pretty good. So I know you say you were in the mental health field for about 2 years, you said?
Yeah,
Two and
a
a half
little
years?
over 2 years now. Yes.
Okay. And is that for adults or children? Or
Um, when I started out, it was both.
okay.
Now I work with more so older adults now.
Uh-huh.
Um, I typically work with people who are in higher need of care, who have diagnoses like schizoaffective disorder, bipolar disorder, things like that.
Oh, and what led you to get into that field? Because I know you say your daughter is 7, so
Yes.
it took a while for you to, I guess, get into that field. But yeah, what made you get into that field?
So originally, when I started out in my undergrad, I was going to go to school to be a lawyer. I wanted to be an attorney. I wanted to work, and quote unquote, help put the bad guys away. That was a lifetime ago. Um, I had a friend who went through a traumatic situation where she was um, assaulted, and the cops they arrested her, the people who did it, and they prosecuted the people who did it. And I watched her, after the arrest and the prosecution and trial, all that stuff. She was still kind of going through it,
Yeah.
and then she started to go through therapy, and I started to notice that the person that I knew she was, because again, when you go through something like that, when you experience that type of trauma, you're kind of not going to be yourself for a while.
Yeah.
Her going through therapy, I started to see her start to come back to who she was. Started to see the joy come back into her. Started to see her start to be more comfortable with greeting the world again, because it's
Yeah.
understandable that when you go through something that traumatic, you really don't want to be in contact with the outside world a lot. You experience things like hypervigilance. You start to deal with intrusive thoughts. You start to deal with all of those type of things. When I wanted to be a lawyer, my goal was always to help people. And I
Yeah.
think there's no better opportunity to help others than to meet people on their worst possible day. That's why I specialize, excuse me, in trauma and crisis, because I want to work with people in their worst possible moments to help them find those intangibles that were lost due to trauma, that were lost due to circumstances that are far beyond their control.
Wow. And it takes special people to do what you're doing, because my mom worked in the mental health field,
Mm-hmm.
and it's a lot, because you are helping other people, like you said, kind of in their worst moments. So
Mm-hmm.
how do you, I guess, take care of, how do you take care of yourself with having a job, kind of like that, where you're taking it all in?
Well, the first thing that they always tell you to do, I remember even when I started my master's program, and I told them what I wanted my specialty to be, they were like, make sure you're taking care of yourself, because
Okay.
you're going to see a lot of things and hear a lot of things that you can't unsee and you can't unhear.
Yeah.
Um, so the things that I like to do is I like to come home and spend time with the little ones and the wife.
Yeah.
Um, little one's currently crying right now. Um, I'm guessing she tried something adventurous and it didn't work out. Um, I like being able to read. I like being able to enjoy watching movies, television. I'm a nerd, so I collect a bunch of just random nerdy things.
Oh, I
Uh,
see some things there. Is that what you're looking at? Is that Power Rangers?
oh yeah, it is. Yeah, I didn't know the camera was turned that far over, but yeah. Um, so yeah, those are the things I like to do, like to collect, like to do for myself. The most important thing I like to do is just kind of like spend time with the family and just recharge my batteries that way.
Yeah, I love it. I think we all have to kind of find self care within the things that we're doing. So I didn't know that that was your profession from when I met you and we were talking. That's
Mm-hmm.
cool. You're a man of many hats. It seems like. So what would you want to tell parents who have two children on the autism spectrum? Like, what is your experience? I know you touched on it a little bit, and then like, what advice do you have? I know on pages I'll see parents kind of almost afraid, but I feel like you touched base on something pretty well, where if you kind of know already your first child, then,
Mm-hmm.
maybe instead of being afraid, just be prepared or something of
Yeah.
that nature. Yeah.
It's difficult um, when you've gone through the diagnoses, like, and I know you know this firsthand. Sometimes hearing the diagnoses is not an easy thing to hear.
Yeah.
It's a tough road ahead, because now what you may have wanted or expected from your child or expected to happen in terms of their life, and some of the things that you wish for them to be able to do, they may not be able to do. And one of the hardest things with my wife and I was, because I know what it's like having to grow up with a disability, and now my oldest daughter has grown up with a disability,
Yeah.
or is growing up with a disability, and my youngest daughter um, may now have it as well, and it's tough. But the longer you wait, and we know this from like first children, the longer you wait, the harder it can be to get them the services that they need. Programs um, Elwin, programs like um, Center for Autism, programs
Hmm.
like uh, Easter Seals, those programs, like those kind of schools that you can kind of get your kids into early and get them early interventions. It's helpful sooner rather than later. And I
Yeah.
understand that there may be a stigma surrounding it, and I understand that people may not understand. I think we've all been through that, with that
Yeah.
one parent or that one person who feels like it's not an issue. It's just you're not parenting right, or all the other random things that people say to parents with children with autism. We
Yeah.
know that the sooner you can get them early intervention, despite what anybody else says, the better it could be for them. So I know it's tough to now have a second child and go, they have it now too, or they're now living through autism too. But the sooner you get them services, you know what it's like the first time, the
Yeah.
sooner the better.
Yeah. And that actually takes us right into our next question too. But you did mention some of this already, which is Elwin and the Center for Autism, which I'll probably have to find a link for that and add it to this later on because you're saying some good things here. And then Easter Seals, you said, right? Easter
Correct.
Seals. Okay, so I'll probably find that. So, how's it been finding the right educational settings for your daughters? For
Mhm.
me, it's just been very difficult. I'd rather just keep him home, like,
Yeah,
or homeschool him or something like
yeah.
that.
It's understandable. Like, there's a lot of things that can make you concerned about sending your child to special needs programs in public schools. Oftentimes, the concern can be: is the educator trained enough to? Do they have the right type of training to work with your children? Do they
Yeah,
have the right type of tolerance or patience to be able? Because not every you're not going to be on your best day every day. And then
yeah,
when you pair that with horror stories that you can read on the internet or videos that you see on the internet of teachers abusing students in special needs classrooms, yeah, it can be scary. My wife and I, we went through that. Sending her to my daughter now goes to a special needs program in a public school, and thankfully,
yeah.
thankfully, it's a really good program. But we've seen the horror stories. We've heard the horror stories about what's happened. We've had a family member who was actually abused at a different school in a special needs program. A teacher decided, big guy, worked in special needs program. He must have been maybe mid twos, maybe early 300 pounds. Put his knee to one of my nephew's backs and held him there because he felt like no one would listen to him because he's special needs. So there are horror stories out there, but just like there are bad institutions out there or bad educators out there, there are also some good ones.
Really
And I,
great ones. Yeah.
and I think it's a matter of, and I don't know if this is available, but maybe we could maybe build a network of, hey, this is my experience with this teacher, or this is my experience with this
Yeah.
school. This is how they respond to this. This is how they handle this. When I have a tough situation, this is how the principal gets back to me. This is how the teachers get back to me. Because the better the network we have, and honestly, even if it became public, it would make people more aware of, okay, well, maybe we need to fix some things because now people won't send their students to this school, or maybe now people will start filing complaints with the Philadelphia school district, and maybe some of these schools will get their act together. I don't know.
Look, that sounds like a great idea. I'm actually going to the school board tomorrow, going to the school board meeting tomorrow to talk about a lot of things that you just talked about because I'm not sure if you know or if we talked about it before, but my son was abused in the daycare. And
Yeah,
by the director of the daycare, and she used scissors on his back. And
yeah,
DHS and police, I did everything the right way, even down to taking him to the urgent care.
mhm.
All failed him pretty much. Said because he's autistic, they wouldn't do anything about it. And from that point on, that's pretty much kind of fueled my fire for everything I've done
Yeah,
with the petition because so, and I've gone through the emotions, the waves, trying to figure out if I want to send him to another school. So the
yeah,
networking idea you had, I wish that's definitely something that needs to happen. But when I go to the school board tomorrow, I am going to tell them about, just kind of tell them about themselves. I'm going to tell them some of the things that you said, and there needs to be more accountability because what I'm
mhm.
finding is anyone can kind of do whatever they want, and even if they get investigated, like they're still there.
Yeah,
Um, so
yeah,
last time I was at the school board, it took teenagers from Bodine to go up to the school board meeting, tell them what was going on, and then they removed someone that was like that I think had 17 students, reporting them of something.
mm,
But it took the kids having to go to the school board meeting for them to do something. You know what I'm saying? So
yeah. Is your son verbal?
he is verbal, but at the time he was not
Yeah,
that well. So
yeah,
he didn't get speech therapy yet. So, but the fact that he formulated the words about 2 weeks after the incident because he had two long marks and we're all just like, where are these long marks? Even the doctor,
mm,
he said scissors. And once he said that, it made sense. And it took him a while to put the words together. So I know he's not lying.
yeah, yeah.
I couldn't even put those words in his mouth if I wanted to
And
because
that. I'm sorry.
no, go ahead. No.
I'm saying that's one of the tough things because when they're nonverbal, then it really becomes like, well, can they really speak for themselves? Can they really, people start to try to discredit things that they say because again, they're they're working to put the words together and
Yep.
people don't really take them seriously.
Don't even take
That's
that
sad.
serious. Yep. And it was hard because he said it to everybody, to police, to DHS,
Yeah.
to everyone that he saw for a good couple of months after that.
Yeah.
So that's pretty much, fuel my fire. But like you said, I've met the team that he has now, his speech therapist, his OT, his one-on-one, that whole team of specialists. I found some really good core people that, like you said, are great people.
Mm.
Now, the teachers in the school, on the other hand, I feel like with that is kind of up in the air. But, I've met good specialists. So
Mm.
let me see here. All right. Oh, we actually got to this part. So, what could they use in a school, I guess, that would help them better succeed? Like, so I guess, what would a public school for children with autism look like for you? Because you have an older child than I do. So for me, this is kind of like a new idea, but I've researched other schools in other states. But if you could put a perfect school kind of together for your daughters, what would that look like?
Alert. Press ESC
Oh,
to
I'm
exit
sorry.
full
My
screen.
daughter
Oh
just came up and pressed the button on
ESC
my
to
keyboard.
exit.
She's fascinated with my keyboard.
yeah.
Um,
Enter.
so one of the things that I would like to, because it has lights on it, one of the things that I'd like to do, if I could, is number one, a school that's completely dedicated to students who are on the spectrum would be just that. Um, I know there's a lot of schools that have like a special needs classroom, and there's a diverse set of diagnoses in that classroom. Um, a lot can get lost in the shuffle. As someone that went to a school that was focused, because Philadelphia has a school for the blind and visually impaired, and I went to it when I was in fourth grade. I went from fourth to eighth grade, and I know firsthand that a school that can focus
Yeah.
specifically on your needs can make a world of difference. Because in a mainstream environment, a lot of schools are focused on, can we have this child mainstream? Can we get this child into a
Right.
neurotypical classroom as fast as possible, so that way we don't have to have so many resources diverted to special needs programs? No, actually let the kid grow and develop in their school, in their lane, so that they can get a sense of identity. A lot of times, when I was in a mainstream classroom, um, I was known as the kid with the vision impairment or the blind kid. When I went to a school that was dedicated to being blind or visually impaired, I was known as James, because I
Yeah.
was one of many, but my
Yeah.
diagnosis, my vision impairment wasn't my entire identity. People were able to work with me as a person. And I
Yeah.
feel like with a lot of schools, a lot of mainstream schools, the problem is that you're working with the kid as their diagnoses and not them as a person. So I would like to see more focus on that in a specifically autism spectrum school.
Yeah, it's interesting you talked, well, not interesting because you went to that school, but when I went to the last school board meeting and there's a video of this that I actually put on the Facebook group page and it's also on YouTube, I said on there, we have a school for the deaf,
Mm-hmm.
but we don't have a school for children with autism.
Yeah,
It's kind of one of those things where it's like, what
and
happened? Like, how did we drop? And well, and to be
because
honest,
those schools, I can tell you firsthand, those schools were a fight to even get started.
oh,
Schools
okay.
like Overbrook School for the Blind and Pennsylvania School for the Deaf, those were a fight to get started. People were not interested in having those schools even be around.
Wow.
So the fight that it took to make those happen, it's like for individuals with any type of disability or special need, it's all in lip service only. Yes, we care about those with disabilities. Yes, we care about those with cognitive impairments. Yes, we care about those who are non-neurotypical. But when it comes time to actually put action to it,
Yeah.
it's not it's not sexy for voting. You
Yeah.
know what I mean? So like nobody really goes for it. Nobody really pays attention to it. Oh, it's something we can do later, and then later becomes never.
Yeah.
So those are the fights that you have with things with people with disabilities.
Yeah, and you're right about that because I've reached out to a couple of congressmen and I've spoken to them, but none who I'm like, hey, like I'm not a politician. This is really something you guys need to kind of take hold a rein on. I mean, granted, I have my different ways of getting the attention to the politicians, but the
Mhm.
point is, I'm coming to you in the beginning of this movement where you could really be the forefront, or one of you need to be the ones that take this and do this for our children, but you're not. And I have my political science degree, so it's also interesting. You were talking about being a lawyer. I never wanted to be a lawyer, but I've always wanted to help our people.
Mm-hmm.
Like I went to FLC. I said, hey, one day I'm going to just help out the school district of Philadelphia. I said that in high school. Because even in high school, I knew we didn't have a lot. So, and I was in Masterman was around the corner. So to go to FLC and then see Masterman and just the different things that they had, I'm like, well, why none of this makes sense. The way the money is allocated doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But so right now I'm looking at private schools for my son, because I just find that the ratios in the private schools, I guess, are kind of smaller. But even sometimes with that, it depends on how they're learning in that private school. Like I would still want him to get certain skills in some private schools, they're not teaching writing as much because they're outside a lot. You know what I mean? Or it's that that kind of give and take there. But the school that I looked at, they had recess 2 times a day, and I know that children with disabilities or on the spectrum need vitamin D, and that's kinda always something that I've said about my son, like, he could probably be outside half the day. So one of the schools that I looked at, it's on near the Wissahickon, so they would, like, be in the creek a little bit in the morning, and then the creek a little bit, I guess, in the afternoon, and just certain things where if they had that in a school for children, with autism, they'd be able to get a lot of the things that they need even PT wise that is difficult possibly to do at home. Because I know
Right.
my son needs PT, but to his teacher and the other people who don't see certain things, he doesn't need physical therapy. But he does. So
And that's one of the things that you don't have to worry about when you have a school like that. You don't have to worry about other kids wondering, well, why do they get to go outside twice a day, or why do they get to do these
yeah.
things that we don't normally get to do? That school is geared specifically for their needs, which a lot of times in public school you can do, but you can only do to a certain extent.
Yeah, and I want to meet other parents, similar parents. I know I met about like one or two parents from my son's school, but it's not, it's not like it's difficult when you're in a mainstream school because they can't tell you that this child's autistic, or it's like they can't even really say that word. So when I'm picking up, you're picking up or dropping off your kid, you don't necessarily know if there's not a classroom for them. So it's kind of like I almost feel alone as a parent, because even the activities that they'll be like, oh well, we're doing this for like 2 hours and we're going to be doing this, and I'm like, that activity does not even sound like something my son or really any really child on the spectrum can even do. Yeah, I'm going to try to make myself and Austin uncomfortable so that I can get through this stuff that you guys put together that has nothing to do with like me and my son in mind. So we have to change ourselves to fit into you guys instead of like even accommodating or anything like that.
I love the sensory nightmare activities where people like have birthday party, like we want to go to Dave and Buster's, and I'm like, all of those lights and all of those sounds. Nah, I think we're going to pass on this one. We'll see you guys later. It's a lot of things that like becomes difficult. But have you gone to places like We Rock the Spectrum?
We Rock the Spectrum? I've never heard of it.
So there are places in Philadelphia, Kids at Play and We Rock the Spectrum, that are specifically built for children with autism to be able to go and play. Literally, we went to, there's one here in Philly, and then there's one over in New Jersey. My wife and I, we took our oldest to New Jersey, and there's a sign on the wall that I love. The sign on the wall said, "Finally a place where you don't have to say I'm sorry." And it just resonated with me. Like every time you take a child on the spectrum somewhere, it's like there's so many like things that they do differently than everybody else. Or if they have a meltdown, you don't have to apologize about a meltdown. Or if they do some self-stimulating, you don't have to apologize because it looks weird to other people. You're literally in there with children who are just like your child, and you can just let them be and have fun, and it's okay.
Yeah. I just wrote that down. I'm definitely gonna have to put the link in here somewhere because I did not know that.
Yes, they are. It is beautiful. It is beautiful. Like we only got to take my daughter once. We've been trying to get back ever since, but things have just been coming up. But you can have birthday parties there if you want to. You can take them there just on a rant. I think you. Let me double check. Babe, do you have to schedule an appointment to go to We Rock the Spectrum?
your play session because
Okay.
it's not really big, so they only have like certain amount of slots open for children.
Okay.
But they also have like trained staff there.
Okay. Thanks, but
You're welcome.
so you do have to book a session.
Okay.
You have to book a play session, but they have trained staff there to work with
They
your
do
children.
also have
Oh.
a free play session, but only for a certain amount of time.
There's also a free play session. My wife's giving me more information in the background. She said there's a free play session too, but it's only for a limited amount of time.
Okay, free
So
play session for a limited amount of time.
So it's worth it to be able, like, if you just want to take your child somewhere to go play, and you don't feel like dealing with the headache of parents' opinions or judgments or
Yeah.
other kids being cruel to your kid.
Yeah.
There's that. There's also Chuck E. Cheese has Sensory Sundays. The first Sunday of every month. It's like in the morning. It's 9 to 11. I thought it was 9 to noon. From 9 to 11, you can actually take your child there, and it's just children who have sensory challenges. You don't have to worry about the mass public. It's only children.
I
The lights aren't as bright.
I love that. I'm writing all these things down. Also, tell her I said thank you too. We're gonna have to get her on this next time, both of y'all.
Okay. She said thank you, and she wants to have you on too.
Yeah.
I don't know.
That's all right.
Camera shy. Tell her that.
She's camera shy. Sort
That's
of.
all right. She can be in the background. That's okay. We're still getting the information, so I appreciate it. I really
Absolutely.
do. So first Sunday, so far kids that play We Rock the Spectrum, and then you said Chuck E. Cheese.
Sensory Sundays, first Sunday of every month from 9 to 11. She says the lights aren't as bright, the music's not as loud. It's literally geared toward them.
Yeah, because I took Austin to Chuck E. Cheese, I think, when he was 2. This is before he got the diagnosis, but I already knew.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a nightmare for both of us.
Yeah.
It was just so much.
Mm-hmm.
And I think another one of my friends, she had a birthday party for her son that was at a place similar to Chuck E. Cheese, but it didn't have all the lights and noise. It was more of like a gym sort of setting. And that we could do because there was not as much lights, noise, not as many kids. You know what I mean? So it's exactly what you said, where it's like, you got to tell me what's going on. And then from there, I can kind of let you know whether or not we can make it. But that's why School for Autism would be great because, even some of the stuff can be geared towards all the children who have similar things going on versus, so
yeah.
That's what I'll be looking forward to. But so let me see. I think we have actually gotten through all of our questions, but would you like to give any final thoughts or words, even though I would really like to have you on again and we speak some more?
Absolutely.
Yeah, but any thoughts, any final words?
So this comes from being a mental health therapist and just seeing, this isn't necessarily just for the parents who have children on the spectrum, but children who may be on the spectrum. Like you said, you've seen one of the things that kind of becomes, I guess, the gift is you start to notice when other children are displaying symptoms of being on the spectrum, and you have parents who are unsure. Speak up, share those things, because a lot of times parents are afraid to get their kids diagnosed or get their kids tested. There's a lot of stigma around having autism, around having a diagnosis, around having physical therapy and occupational therapy and speech therapy. There's a lot of stigma around it. I've seen it firsthand. I've heard everything from I'm not sure I want to do that because I don't want to ruin the child's life to what would my friends think, and know that was really a thing. I had a parent tell me, what would my friends think if my kid was on the spectrum? That's not the words they used. I wish it was, but it wasn't.
Yeah, I understand.
At the end of the day, it helps your child. There are things that are geared toward your child that can help them learn, that can help them grow, that can help them develop. A lot of times, children who are undiagnosed, when they aren't treated when they're younger, end up in different systems when they're older.
Yeah.
They end up in the penal system when they're older because no one understands them. No one diagnoses, and this is the thing that I found out, that not many adults usually aren't diagnosed. If you're
Okay.
not diagnosed as a child, they usually don't try to diagnose you as an adult.
Oh.
So it's better to know now and to
Okay.
work with your child now and to get them the services and the resources and connect with other parents and connect with other families that are on the spectrum than it is to grow up and avoid it because you don't want for them to have that stigma. It only helps them. It does not hurt them. Get them tested.
Thank you. I think that I love you. You definitely have the right profession because hit some heartstrings. I've definitely met parents, everything you said, who said stuff about the friends, didn't want their child diagnosed, and was just like they have delays. And I'm like, all right, you're saying delays, but what you really, it's actually, autism.
Yeah.
It's okay. But you rather say developmental delay than the
Yeah.
autism, but then you don't realize that if you keep saying developmental delay and you're not getting that diagnosis, then you're not getting all the help that would come with
Correct.
at least getting that. And that's what I've realized, that like it's kind of a double-edged sword because once they get the diagnosis, you deal with schools looking at their IEPs and just kind of seeing the diagnosis and going from there. But if you put that part aside, they have to give you things once you get the diagnosis.
Correct.
And to me, that's the most important thing. Like now you have to. And if you don't, it can become a legal thing. And then, then you can support and back up your child. But if you don't do that, then it's like they kind of don't have to do.
And they don't want to do that. There are a lot of fights in the school district of Philadelphia. Like we know I believe it's Green Tree. Is it Green Tree Elementary? Yeah. That is a school for individuals with special needs. But in order to even get into the school district wants your child to have failed kindergarten or failed first grade. You have to fail a whole grade before they consider it.
Yeah.
They will not consider it for you beforehand. That is ridiculous. If there is a school that specializes in needs, why do you have to fail? It's because the school district would have to pay for your child because it's a private school. The school district would have to pay for your child to go there. And the school district doesn't want to pay that. The school district doesn't want to put or provide for that because as little as they can, they'll help you. Little. Yeah. So having those kind of resources, having that diagnosis, having those things can help you. If you just go in and say, hey, they have delays, they will tell you, look, there's some after school programs you can do. Good luck with that. They will dismiss you as soon as they possibly can.
You said Green Street?
Green Tree.
Green Tree.
Yep.
Green Tree. Like I feel like I'm in class right now. I got a whole list here of things that I'm going to have to look up and add to this when I put it on YouTube.
That's what you normally say.
But yeah, but okay, so thank you for all the information and for being on with me tonight. Sorry if this was a little longer than I said it was going to be or we anticipated.
No, it's fine.
Yeah, you gave us a lot of really good information. This is why, as well, I would definitely like to get you on here again, even to talk about preteens, teenagers, adults, and how, what you've seen, I guess, in your field and stuff like that. Because even though we're talking about children, there are parents as well that are watching this that have, probably similar things as their child and may not know. So some of the stuff that they're hearing from you, they could be applying to themselves.
Absolutely.
So I would love to give people the opportunity to learn from you. So, all right, everybody. Well, thank you for watching the podcast. And I'd like to thank my guest again, James Bolger, and thank his wife in the background.
She says thanks, honey.
We'll see you next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.